Look, let me deal with the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think our bosses owe you an apology for putting you in this situation, because I don't know what to believe. She is now a paid contributor by NBC News. Well, I have no idea whether any answer she gave to you was because she didn't want to mess up her contract. She wants us to believe that she was speaking for the RNC when the RNC was paying for her. So she has credibility issues that she still has to deal with.
Yeah.
Is she speaking for herself, or is she speaking on behalf of who's paying her?
Okay, Chuck Todd, finding a little backbone. That was NBC's Chuck Todd talking to Kristen Welker about Welker's interview with former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel, who, unbeknownst to Welker, or perhaps simultaneous to this interview, is now an NBC paid contributor. Ta-da! It's come full circle, kind of. We're hiring goons. So NBC has hired Ronna McDaniel as a political analyst, and there was Chuck Todd saying basically, I don't know if she was just worried that she wouldn't keep this job, or who she was trying to protect. I don't know if this was an honest interview or not. Kristen Welker, for her part, said that McDaniel's interview was scheduled weeks before Ronna McDaniel's the hiring was announced, and added that it will be a news interview and that she was not involved in the hiring, which I guess obviously, but apparently the interview did not help her gain footing, that is McDaniel, with the broader network, because there you see Chuck Todd aired his criticism, and Chuck Todd rarely sticks his neck out for too many things. But here's a little snippet of that interview with Ronna McDaniel, again, former RNC chair, about her role in the Michigan fake electors scheme, which she was part of. Take a look.
You and Donald Trump were recorded pushing to Republican Michigan officials, election officials, not to certify the results of the election. And on the call, you're recorded as saying, quote, "If you can go home tonight, do not sign it. We will get you attorneys." Do you have regrets about that phone call and your actions that day?
I'm so glad you asked me about this, because I've never had a chance to respond to this. And if you know the course of what happened that night, these two individuals went into a hearing, they voted no. They didn't vote not to certify. They said, we want an audit. There were some problems in Wayne County. They've been consistent. They've been well documented over subsequent elections. And they said, as canvassers, we think we should have an audit before we certify. That's all they asked for.
And then you were like, we're definitely gonna get you lawyers. Why would you need a lawyer? Is it because what they were doing was illegal? Is that, no? Okay. So that's part of the interview, and that's what a lot of NBC staffers actually have a problem with, although leadership says there's no problem here. This is Vice President of Meet the Press, actually, Carrie Budoff Brown, who said, quote, "It couldn't be a more important moment to have a voice like Ronna's on the team. McDaniel will provide an insider's perspective on national politics and the future of the Republican Party, and hopefully tell us how they're gonna try and steal it this time around. We're just gonna get the inside track, and then we're gonna watch it all, and and as we descend into fascism, we'll be there with balance on both sides."
A lot of mainstream media don't give you honest news. We do. You know why? Because of you. Paid membership on YouTube makes all the difference. Hit the join button below, and you become the hero that sustains us.
Oh my God. Anyway, before I can get to you, was a couple more pieces here. Staffers were very upset, obviously, as you saw Chuck Todd. Apparently, there's a sign that she was said to be appearing across all NBC News platforms, which a lot of MSNBC staffers thought that meant their channel. And it seems like internal communications show that it might not be MSNBC. Here's some anchors actually expressing their anger that she might actually appear on MSNBC as well as NBC. Take a look.
I will say this, I think your interview did a good job of exposing, I think, many of the contradictions. And look, there's a reason why there's a lot of journalists at NBC News uncomfortable with this, because many of our professional dealings with the RNC over the last 6 years have been met with gaslighting, have been met with character assassination. So it is, that's where you begin here. And so when NBC made the decision to give her NBC News' credibility, you gotta ask yourself, what does she bring NBC News? And when we make deals like this, and I've been at this company a long time, you're doing it for access. access to audience. Sometimes it's access to an individual, and we can have a journalistic ethics debate about that. And I'm willing to have that debate. And if you told me we were hiring her as a technical advisor to the Republican convention, I think that would be certainly defensible. If you told me we're talking to her, but let's see how she does in some interviews and maybe vet her with actual journalists inside the network, see if it's a two-way, what she can bring the network. So I do think, unfortunately, this interview is always going to be looked through the prism of who is she speaking for.
So that was, again, more Chuck Todd raising some really interesting questions. And then from what I mentioned earlier, again, president of MSNBC, Rashida Jones, has said there is no obligation to book Ronna McDaniel on their shows. Joe Scarborough of Morning Joe, for his part, has said they refuse to do so. We will see, Waz, but I guess maybe your thoughts on the hiring, but maybe also hearing Chuck Todd kind of call it like it is on this one particular aspect.
I think it's kind of hilarious that Chuck Todd is on Meet the Press of all shows, crying about a lack of sort of integrity around NBC's news operations. Whenever these people want to come out and sell a freaking war, want to sell some of the most heinous, most ridiculous things that our government is out there trying to do, they've gone on Meet the Press to do so, okay? This idea that NBC and their news properties are so pure. If you ever turn the dial to CNBC, which is basically the media propaganda arm of the corporate class, the Wall Street class of this country, like this idea that there is some purity of journalistic integrity across NBC's news operation is absurd. Like, I get why Chuck Todd is, personally, this one personally feels nasty because these people, they feel personally wounded by what Trump and his cronies tried to do in 2020 in places like Georgia and Michigan and Arizona. Like, he's personally offended by those things. So this one thing gets on his nerves, but I would argue that, MSNBC is so precious. They couldn't possibly have some woman in Michigan who did election interfering, be a paid contributor. Says who? Again, like Meet the Press, they sold that damn Iraq war. All kinds of freaking lies on that show. Nobody pushed back. Nobody came back and said, whoops, my bad, folks. We shouldn't allow that on our airtime. This information was unvetted. This was nonsense. This was BS. There was no credibility to it. Give me a break. I understand that Chuck Todd is personally offended by this particular form of, I guess you would say, journalistic malpractice, but NBC as, some paragon of journalistic integrity, give me a freaking break. Don't Jim Cramer still work up there?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. I think what's interesting is that they don't see the kind of conflict of interest that we've all seen about them for so long, right? When they hire children of politicians currently on air, when they hire Jen Psaki, former press secretaries to the Biden administration on air, when they fire Mehdi Hassan for actually asking questions to Israeli officials rather than buying their line about this genocide, hook, line, and sinker, then we ask questions. And then their panties get in a bunch when you've got Ronna McDaniel, which is a lie that we know is a lie, meaning she peddled a lie that we know is a lie, but you can't draw lines in the lies here. Like, we see all your lies. We see all the propagandists that you have hired. So don't expect at least progressives and leftists to sort of like join with you to, protect the media. And he said it himself. I mean, I think this is the line that stuck with me is it's clicks, man. It's clicks, it's the right. Everyone wants to see Ronna McDaniel, get upset with Chuck Todd. They want to see the bickering. They want their, their little moment. Ronna's gonna say some weirdo Q stuff and whatever. Like, that is everyone is still chasing eyeballs and clicks. And so miss me with the we're so integrous here. No, we know what you chase. We know what you don't choose not to report. To say nothing of, yes, the kinds of atrocities that you regularly pass off as normal, like this assault in Gaza.
I'll just say this one last thing. I think Chris Hayes does some pretty decent work up there. I think he's trying his hardest. Rachel Maddow kind of went off the rails with the Russiagate stuff, but I think she's generally trying to do a good job. And over the years, MSNBC has had decent people trying to do some decent news up there. But NBC, yes, Francesca included, but NBC, Comcast, Universal. Remember, folks, this is a huge company. This idea that they are so interested in the purity and the sanctity of shoe leather journalism and all of the sort of principles that are attached to that. Give it a rest, Shuck Todd.
Yeah, I like how you give him a soft CH, a shuck Todd, like we're shucking oysters.
Well, he's shucking and jiving up there. That's why I call him Shuck Todd.
All right, thanks for watching this free clip of Old School. Don't forget to become a TYT member today for the rest of the show and for more exclusive content throughout the network. Join now at tyt.com/join.